Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Third Down Polls. I've got a great guest this week. It's Ben, the founder of the Manchester Card Con. We're just about to take a big leap with a bigger venue in end of January. I mean, more tickets, more vendors, and I can imagine more stress. And we will tackle all that in a little while. But first, let's take it back to the beginning. What made you want to organise a card show in Manchester, Ben?
So I'm going to summarise with this because I've had some involvement in building communities in the past. So going back 7, 8 years ago, I was a founder of a few different running communities. So I've not always been a conventional type of man, and with the running communities that I created, I saw that your typical running club, you usually get a majority of people who chase time. So there is a overwhelming number of running clubs around the UK and around the world where it's at, we had this expectation where you got to run a 5K in 28 minutes. And, I sort of like went away from that. I thought, well, there's just like card collecting and any hobbies that we have, there's people who are all at different levels, different backgrounds, different experiences, different knowledge levels. And I thought I just wanted to create that inclusive community where we just welcome everyone. It's like if you want to start running, if you own some running shoes, you're welcome to rock up and we'll run as a collective and no one gets left behind. So I did that for a few years. That was massively successful. Ended up connecting with a lot of other running communities. So running crews. You look at that word alone, club, it's exclusive, where running crew is, it's inclusive. And that sort of like built the identity that enabled me to transition into creating the Manchester Card Con. However, I have found that the majority of card shows around the world, they are inclusive. But, I really wanted to step up the plate and say, in the word inclusive or inclusivity, it's not just, like it coming out of your mouth, really got to create that environment and community around it. And I just thought, what, I've really enjoyed organising running communities. I really want to do this with the other passion that I've got in life, which is card collecting and being around like-minded people and just bringing everyone together under one roof. So like for me, it was just ultimately, me having zero expectations. And the one caveat I had when I say I have no expectations when I hosted the first Manchester Card Con is I just wanted people to have a good day. That was the singular expectation for me. If people could actually leave at the end of the day and say, I was really content with going there today, it just enabled me to actually build on that. And, I'm a firm believer in, it's actually a running pun this, but you've got to learn how to walk before you run. And similar vein, like you wouldn't sign up to London Marathon or Manchester Marathon and do no training for it and turn up on the start line having never, even run for 5 minutes. And it's, I've sort of like taken a lot of what I've learned through running and creating those running communities, and it's transferred into building the Manchester Card Con.
Have you mentioned the running background and into the card shows now? I can only imagine how much time and effort goes into organising a card show.
So I actually do keep a timesheet, so I'm very meticulous. There's a little bit of a myth around card shows that there's a lot of money involved in organising it, which is far from the truth because there's a lot of outgoings, and with creating a show that has got an identity and a, brand identity and a client base, you've got to think outside of the box. When I say I keep a time sheet, this is something that I do outside of, my full-time work. So typically, especially over the last 12 to 18 months, I can be spending anything from 10 to 16 hours a week. With the energy that I put into Manchester Card Con, like that could be networking with people, traveling, social media posts, emails, phone calls. Those are just a handful of things. But the one thing that I take from all of this, despite it being very timely, is I get so much joy out of it, and it gives me the best form of escapism. away from work, away from the stresses that we do find in everyday life, which is, life itself. So I don't look at it as being a form of stress, organising the Manchester Card Con. And I actually only said this to a friend earlier that when I'm investing any time or energy into Manchester Card Con, I'm in that flow state, sort of like where you feel really content and
Yeah.
you get a lot of joy out of something. And I think that's what the card community brings to a majority of people, who've got some form of business venture or just use it as a way of opening packs or going to the local shop. You are in that flow state because you're around like-minded people and you're doing something that you thoroughly enjoy.
You mentioned how many hours you put in outside your full-time job. That just shows how much passion you've got for obviously the trading card scene, but just building that community. It's really great to see.
Yeah, it is, and I just love being around people. I wouldn't say I'm a people pleaser because I think if you try and please everybody, it's very hard to sustain that. But I just love being around people, not even necessarily like-minded people. And the one thing that fascinates me about trading cards is it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter who you're from, it doesn't matter what you collect. As soon as you open your mouth and say, "I collect cards," and you see someone sort of like interested in you saying that handful of words, everything follows from that, and that's what I love about card shows. It's like it's a great place to meet people you ordinarily wouldn't talk to away from trading cards. Like when whether you're going to the supermarket, whether you're on a holiday, whether you're in the playground waiting to pick your kids up from school, you don't know who you're surrounded by because you want to turn up to those places and say, to the person next to you, like, "Excuse me, do you collect football cards? Do you collect Pokemon? Do you collect NFL cards?" It's just it's not a normal conversation to have. So for us to have that outlet, it does, it makes me feel incredibly happy. And I don't know if you've seen that yourself, Jordan, where, through this journey that you're having, you meet so many fascinating people and, that people is the big word. That you do truly find your people in this community.
Yeah, I've only been in it a small time, and yeah, exactly that. I've seen some amazing conversations. It starts with trading cards, and you can just go into sports and go into anything else. But if as soon as you start talking about trading cards, you can see the passion in people's eyes when you talk about it. That's something that really got me into it as well. So yeah, totally agree with what you're saying there. So you started in 2023, if I'm right, was the first show that you did, and you've done quite a few number of shows each year. When you look back at the progression since the first show, there must be some like joy from what you've created from the start to where you are today.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really thankful that a lot of the people who've been there since day one are still there. And for me, those friendships have flourished on top of the relationships that have been built. And, that's when I've got to tip my hat right now to Third Down. They have been there since day one, with the exception of Third Down, as well as a couple of other companies. They've been so supportive. And, I literally will travel to the end of the earth or, like not just Third Down, but a handful of other companies because, like, it's not just loyalty. It's like it's just that organic growth. It's like when you look at the journey that Third Down have been on. I remember like the first Manchester Card Con, that's when Third Down team had only really started, using 3D printer to make stands. Prior to that, it was like sort of like the fixtures for your wall for mini helmets and so on. And so that's one thing that I've reflected on. It's not just about my journey and seeing the steady growth of Manchester CardCon. It's other business enterprises and startups that I've seen. And I won't name the company in particular, but I remember third Manchester CardCon, somebody who at the time was only living nearby to me said, "Oh, I'm producing this type of product. I don't really know much about card shows, but can I be a vendor?" Like, yeah, sure thing. So this was August 2023. I saw this person only a couple of months ago. They've since moved elsewhere in the UK, and like I said, look, when we last saw each other, you said that you was doing this, so you could quit your job and you wanted to see your wife quit her job. How are you getting on? And the response I got, like really blew me back, and made me think like, wow, this is why we do what we do. Money's not the only currency, but when he said, yeah, made 1.2 million turnover in 2020. This is November the conversation. So up until that point, 2025, 1.2 million pound turnover, and this is through somebody just having an idea, and we all start at day one. No followers, no brand identity, no community. In similar vein to Third Down, it's just an idea that people have executed and brought. And it is, it's become a real thing. And like they call you, mate, Jordan. Like you're really only at the start of your journey. But we all start there. We all start there. We start at zero. We start with zero cards. We start with zero connections in the card community. And before you know it, it's like, wow, I think reflecting is such an important thing, not just in card collecting, but life itself. And that's why I'm really humbled that, I can see other people's journey and, I enjoy that. Like when you sort of, it's sort of like watching a TV series. I keep up to date with what people are doing and their journey in this space, even if they just collect cards, like if they're like, I want to collect the Premier League manga case hits, I've only got three more to collect. It's like, well, we started with one. So it really fascinates me, that type of thing.
I think it's great word you use there, reflection, looking back and thinking what we've achieved. And obviously over them 3 years now for yourself coming in 2026, you must have learned some lessons of that time to get to this point.
Yeah, definitely. There is some lessons that, fortunately, with me treating it as a learning curve, I don't think you can ever be an expert at something. There's always room for improvement, or there's room for ensuring that consistency is still a thing. And there's a couple of decisions that I've made, which have blown up in my face. So very early days, I used a different venue, and the venue didn't really work because the dynamics of the space didn't really facilitate that foot flow. So it's all those strategic things that you've got to think about, in life and business. You constantly are learning something new, but throughout all that, I'm just really content that the decisions that I make for Manchester CardCon is because I'm putting the community first, and also like the strategic elements that I've learned along the way. That for me, I think that curating a show is very important. If and this is why I've never got to a place, and the likelihood is it will do. But when I talk about that steady growth, it's like I don't want to have 200 tables, 250 tables, because it can sort of like dilute that flow. And so with the curation of it, it's like I want a good mix of sport vendors. It's like if I've got 3-4 dozen sports vendors, I don't want it to all be soccer vendors. There's got to be something for everyone, because you are giving the community, like something back. It's like if you only collect baseball or you only collect NFL, you want to go to a card show, and knowing that you can actually bump into, a few of those vendors that are selling that particular sport. And in similar vein to, the TCG market, we've seen the popularity of One Piece just go kaboom, which it makes me really happy because I'm a massive One Piece fanboy. I've watched the anime for many years now, so it's important that you don't just have Pokemon vendors, because if you're buying a ticket to a show and you collect Yu-Gi-Oh and there's no Yu-Gi-Oh cards there, you get a little bit disillusioned. So it's constantly thinking outside of the box and not looking at something like black and white, as simple as let's hire a venue and just let anybody be a exhibitor or a vendor here. You got to cater for absolutely everyone, and that's what I've learned. That curating an event, or like, I'm sure, like like Third Down team, like the shop itself, which is absolutely fantastic. There's a corner in that shop for everybody. It's not just like, oh, you know, um, Ben's a massive, NFL fan, and we're only really going to stock NFL cards because that's what I'm interested in. You've got to look at what everybody is invested in and interested in.
We mentioned community a few times, and you must be doing something really well because that community is growing, which has meant a bigger building this year for yourself in 2026. What a start to 2026 that is for yourself. How much of a risk do you feel that move is? But there must be some excitement at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement, and for me, especially where we are at right now with the card show calendar, there's a lot more competition, which shows that there's a lot more eyes on the hobby, and there's a lot more people that have come into the hobby. And although you say that you're only relatively new to this space, I'm sure that you've learned a lot and seen that it is progressively becoming more popular month by month. And I've certainly seen that. I mean, my concern is like it's there's more quantity rather than quality, and the amount of you know like um like thought and like feelings that go into the Manchester Card Con. And if there's any other card show organizer that listens to this episode, if they can tolerate my dulcet northern tones, that is, it's they'll be able to relate to this. It's like they want to put on an event, they just don't want to put out tables and just let anybody be an exhibitor. So yeah, it was, it's a risk. I mean, anything's a risk. Like the first Manchester Card Con was a risk, and for me, it was a really difficult, this decision for me to leave behind what I call the spiritual home of Manchester Card Con, but something I had to give. And when you're at capacity each and every time, there's clearly a demand to make that progression. So with the new venue, there is the additional cost. Which you got to think about. Like money's the number one currency in life, but there's so many other currencies. And for me, it was like just giving people that opportunity to see the growth of the Manchester Card Con. But throughout all of this, it just shows that we are enthusiastic about making sure that people enjoy themselves, and that's why I keep doing it. Like so many people that say, "How do you do this on top of working full time, on top of being a family man? How do you manage to go to so many other card shows and go to card shops when you're short on time?" But I don't look at it like that. It's like you can create time. You can be creative with that, and that's why I'll always do it until the people don't turn up and the people tell me, "Oh, we've had a bad day." I'll continue doing this because I get a lot of joy out of it.
So yeah, bigger venue, that means more people coming through the door. I'm lucky enough to be one of them. So that'll be my first card show as well, coming at the end of Manchester with the guys from
Is
Third
it actually the
Down.
first show?
Yeah, I've never been to one, like I said.
Wow.
I only was going to cards like a few months
Now
ago.
I'm
So
under pressure. I'm under pressure. It's your debut show. If you walk away from it and say, "Yeah, didn't enjoy that," yeah, I'm gonna just, I'm just gonna put down my tools and walk away. So yeah, it's all on you. This.
I'm pretty, the pressure's on. I feel, I'm pretty sure I will enjoy it going on what people have said. But like you mentioned earlier about the different things you've got there, like you've Pokemon, sports, Disney, things like that. I think that's fantastic. And then my question for you is, a person like me, like you mentioned, you've got family and kids. I'm the same. So mine means that as big as some people that come with like a massive suitcase of like cards and like big money. How do you go about, you mentioned how you select people, the vendors, is that goes into when you select what they're selling, because obviously you want the low end and the high end as well, I suppose.
Yeah, it's massively important that because you've got to understand that people have got different budgets, and people may turn up and collecting cards is their only passion. But I'm quite impulsive. I've tried a majority of different hobbies, and I've got a few different hobbies. So outside of card collecting, I'm a big football shirt collector. I like to play a little bit of golf. And I even collect, this is actually a disclosure. This is not public knowledge. So, I've got my heart on my sleeve. So, I don't know if you've seen the Band Presto figurines. So, like, of like different, like characters from anime or manga. So,
Okay, yeah.
it could be, like Bleach, One Piece, like just anything that you pretty much see on Crunchyroll if you've got a Crunchyroll subscription. So, those are a few different hobbies of mine. So, I've got to ensure that I'm budgeting across those three hobbies that I'm passionate about. So it is important that you have got a mix of vendors, not just someone who's got case hits, who's got one of ones and low numbered parallels, or just a table full of Pikachu ponchos. I mean, it's great to see because I sort of like look at some of the vendors and exhibitors, and when they've got those high end cards, it's like going to a museum. It's like a lot of people aren't going to be able to buy those cars, but actually to be able to see them firsthand is fantastic. Take up, I take looking at a table full of Pikachu ponchos over the Mona Lisa, which is very underwhelming. I don't know if you've ever seen the Mona Lisa at the Louvre in Paris, but it's important that, and I love going through the flick throughs. You can get some fantastic bargains, and when I say you've got to cater for everyone, you've got to think like there's some children who are turning up to their first card show who've got £10 to spend, and if they're walking out of whatever card show it is that they've attended with two or three Cristiano Ronaldo base cards, you can see how happy they are. There's something for everyone, and that's what I love about card shows.
We've touched on a few things that make Manchester CardCon stand out, but what would you say the one difference that makes it stand out from the rest of the card shows?
I personally think, and I don't want to go on about inclusivity too much. I've already alluded to it, the fact that people do use a card show as, like, they're creating a startup. So, I've mentioned that the gentleman whose first show was Manchester Card Con to actually show the prototypes of the product that he had, and gone on to have £1.2 million turnover, and so those are the sort of things that I love giving people opportunities to. As soon as they, like slide into my DMs or email inbox, it's like, yeah, I want you to be part of Manchester Card Con, and even some of the couple of the activations that we've got at the end of the month. We've got three of the players from Manchester Basketball coming down to the MCC. There is actually an additional activation within that, which is trading card related, which I'm really excited about, but I'm not going to disclose yet. But it's just going to be fantastic. So, Manchester Basketball are going to be there, and there's actually going to be something that attendees can take home with them. The addition of, sketch artists, because I've always been reluctant to have voice artists at Manchester CardCon. And this is just through feedback that I've had. There is a place for them, but I just feel that there needs to be enough demand for them. So, a couple of the other, like the top two card shows for me, which are wearing the crown, there is a place for them. But AGS Grading, who've just broken into the top five grading companies in the US, they've got a foothold over in the States. They're going to be grading on the day, so it's exciting to have them on board. As well as a lot of familiar faces. So there's been a massive buy-in this time, and I feel for me, like Manchester CardCon, it's important that people talk about it. A lot of marketing goes into creating brand identities and businesses, but the best form of marketing is word of mouth. And it's just like something's just clicked. It's like there's a lot of people who've reached out. So, I've not announced, a few of the very big faces that are going to be at Manchester CardCon at the end of January. I just wanted to have that element of surprise for people who are going to be there on the day. So yeah, like I say steady growth, because like word of mouth really goes around, and that's why I'm really humble that I just do the best that I can do. And it's like anything, you build something and the people will eventually come.
Oh, definitely so, because I'll be one of many new faces, I'm sure, at the end of January. I kind of need your help though with some at Ben now. You'll know a lot of the vendors that are there at MCC. Who should I be speaking to, and who could be future guests on the podcast that you would recommend?
Ooh, I can think of a few people already. So I think, you need, I'm sure it's in the pipeline. If it's not in the pipeline, I need to be having words with your line managers. Jordan from the Scotland Card Show. Um, the one thing I love about Jordan is, although we are very different people, we've got a lot of similar traits in terms of, why we not just only organise card shows, but sort of like the moral compass that we've got and how accessible and engaging we've got, and that's why me and Jordan have really connected. I'm not going to compliment anymore because I know that he will listen to this episode. So you got one guest there. I mean, like for me, like thinking outside of that is like there's so many amazing people in this community. So like got Charlie at Aces Sports Cards, so knowledgeable. Not just around basketball, but other US sports and even football itself. I've had so many fantastic in-depth conversations with him. So you got guest number two there, and like for me, like guest number three is good friend of mine, Sard Cards. He's very, very articulate around giving really key advice, not just when it comes to card collecting, but actually looking at the trends, like thinking further down the line, not just collecting what's the hot potato at the moment. So those are three people who I have really meaningful and fun conversations with. So you've got three guests there. There's many other people that I could mention, but those are three people who I talk to on a regular basis. I think like the fourth one, Chris, get Chris to talk with you again. Do the fat. He says it as it is, and that's the type of people that we need in the collectibles space. People who are true to themselves and very authentic, and have got a passion for this environment that we're in, and that's where I've really connected with a lot of people. There's those people who have got similar traits to me who want the best. They want this hobby to grow, and I can see that they're doing that firsthand just by being themselves.
Definitely have a word with Ben to make sure he's got him on the list. If he hasn't already, he has got a long list that I know of, and he keeps reeling off guests. So I'll definitely have a word with him. There's one thing actually. Obviously, after the show, there's actually a trade night as well, isn't there? Is that open for everyone that's at the show as well, or is it select few?
No, no. See, it's pretty much open door to anyone who's purchased a ticket. Um, there's never going to be an additional cost to the trade night. I personally believe that trade nights should be free, because people have already spent a lot of money during the day. And the best thing that I enjoy about trade nights is, whether I'm doing it at Manchester Card Con or going to a fellow card show myself, is it's a much more relaxed environment where you can really converse with old faces, but also connect with new faces, as well as have that opportunity to open packs. I mean, people open cases at trade nights, which is a lot of fun. But also what I do like is having a few vendors at the trade night, because some people who go to a card show, they won't spend a penny during the day because they're spending the whole day networking and catching up with people. And it's not up until the trade night where they're actually able to buy cards or buy packs and boxes. The same applies with vendors. You do actually get a lot of vendors who stay behind for the trade night. I mean, I'll plug it anyway. So anyone who's listening to this right now, we are only at around 30 general entry tickets left, which is fantastic, 2.5 weeks out. You free trade night with that, and included in that, a third down P Commando cards and Asgard collectibles, who are going to be those exclusive trade night vendors. So it's three different brands that covering different corners of the hobby. And I'm like really thankful for that. But yeah, trade nights should be free. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or whether you've got much knowledge around trade nights or you've been told about them, but it's just that opportunity to take things slower and really connect with like-minded people.
I think the first real event I went to was the Fanatics Trade Night over in Manchester. I went over with Ben, and I really enjoyed it, and like meeting new people, talking to new faces. But I can imagine it's maybe a little bit more chilled after a card show, after the craziness of the day. So yeah, that's the only one I've attended. Hopefully, look forward to trying this one out. You mentioned the ticket sales are going really well. People listen to this podcast, they want to go buy a ticket, want to attend. Where's the best place to go find the tickets?
I bet best thing to do is like a few different things. So either head to the Manchester Card Con Instagram, which is Manchester Card Con. Second place, manchestercardcon.com. Or if you just want to, like Google search on your phone, laptop, whatever piece of technology you use it, just search Manchester Card Con tickets, and it will be the first search result. I don't know how many cards have, sorry, tickets have sold since we've been having a chat, Jordan. But following that, it's just going to be afternoon tickets that are remaining, and I just want to take this opportunity to actually thank everyone who's supported the Manchester Card Con. I think more so than ever, like the number of DMs and emails that I've got, people asking me. I'm traveling from, another part of the UK. We've actually got a dad and son who were a vendor at Manchester Card Con in summer 2024, who are traveling over from Canada, but to actually be attendees, which is great. And we've had people from various other countries, but more so than ever, we've had people reaching out to us asking where's the best hotel to stay, or comments to the effect of we're looking forward to going to the new venue, or we're looking forward to coming for the first time. I'm coming down with my wife, or I'm coming down with my wife and kids, and while I'm at the card show, my wife or family are going to go shopping at the Trafford Centre. So it's sort of like there is something for everyone, even if it's not at Manchester Card Con. And I think the amenities that the new venue bring is great for everyone. It's an improvement, and that's what it's all about. Just looking at those 1% improvements and ensuring that they're executed very well.
We'll definitely, when the podcast comes out, and any clips will definitely drop out where you can underneath in the comments where you can get those tickets. We're going to finish with something here, Ben. We haven't done it before, so you're very privileged to have you here to do it. Some quick fire round questions, just quick answers, and put you on the spot. So the first one is the biggest rookie prospect in any sport this year.
That I'm going to have to go with Cooper Flag. I mean, you look at his prices, and he's had a really solid debut year with the Mavs. Personally, I think he is a better player than Victor Wembanyama. I think he's got that longevity in him, and I'm excited to see what's to come with Cooper Flag.
Yeah, totally on board with that answer. What are your favourite set?
I was asked this recently. I'm going to have to go with UCC Museum Collection, just because, like, even if you buy a hobby box and it's a dead box, you're still getting a couple of autos and a patch in there. So the hit ratio is good, and I prefer the sets where you get less cards, but there's a good opportunity for you actually to get more hits rather than, like Domrus, for example. Domrus I do enjoy, but it's practically 97% base cards. So yeah, I'd say a museum collection, or even Inception. Any sport for Inception. I really enjoy that.
Favourite show that isn't yours?
That's really, really difficult. I'm not going to be able to say pass on this, am I?
If we make it easy, we know all the shows are great, but is there one that stands out to you that has got a special affection to your heart?
I'm going to go with. I'm glad that you've added that special place in my heart, because it was. It's just a one that's not far from home, and I'm a adopted Yorkshireman, and so I lived in Leeds for a period of time, and so I'm going to have to go with Yorkshire Card Show. I've enjoyed the growth there. Excited to see what's to come in the future. yeah, it just both Manchester Card Con and Yorkshire Card Show tend to bounce off each other very well because we don't just have. It's not just a case of there's a lot of the same vendors because there isn't, but I just think that it's that northern contingent and allegiance really back each other. And you see that with business owners that are involved in the card community. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Yorkshire Card Show and give a shout out to Scotland Card Show as well.
There's a question that could touch on some bad memories. What's the one card that got away for you, either not buying or selling?
I would say me being a One Piece fan and not really collecting the cards is a Roronoa Zoro manga. Yeah, I let that go. I don't regret it, but it's just. I mean, a lot of people like buying into One Piece because it's skyrocketing in terms of value. And that's probably the only card that I wish I still had. But outside of that, I'm very selective and picky around what I PC. But yeah, that's got to be that one card.
And finally, what's going to be the biggest thing in the UK hobby in 2026?
You've really put me on the spot here. um, I'm gonna have to say because I'm not a very commercial person, but I think there's going to be more commercial activations at card shows and not just like activations, but connections. I think like even businesses, big business that aren't collectibles related, will see what we are doing, as a community. So there'll be a lot of like business connections made with that. And I'm not going to digress too much, but what I mean by that is card collecting will become more. It'll become part of pop culture more. We've seen Golden and the Golden Touch on Netflix. We're seeing that it's making mainstream news. We had someone, unfortunately, who had, I think it was like £30,000 worth of One Piece cards stolen after a tournament. So there's more eyes on the hobby. So I do think it's truly going to become part of pop culture. So we're sort of like following the lead that the US have always had. So I think that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of links made, and we're no longer going to be the geeks. We're going to be the cool kids. So that's something that I'm excited for this year.
Some great answers there, Ben. And another one, question for the next guest. If you could ask the next guest any question, what would it be? Really putting you on the spot.
Yeah. What one thing would you change in the hobby for the better?
That's a very good question. And we'll ask our next guest that for sure. So make sure you tune in. Well, Ben, I really appreciate you jumping on and telling me more about the Manchester CardCon, which obviously, like I said, I will be attending. So looking forward to it. And we mentioned we will throw all the ticket information underneath the podcast when it comes out over the next few days. And I look forward to meeting you there, Ben. I've already met you once before. Not many people I've met in the hobby so far. You are one of them. So I look forward to meeting you again.
Well,
I think that's the first time I've said that to someone.
twice. It's actually
Yeah.
twice because there was and it was the Tots basketball release day when you were streaming all day. Yeah, so you've had the pleasure of tolerating me twice. So yeah, 3 times a charm on the 31st of January. So bring it on.
You must be doing something right then if I'm coming for a third time.
No, I just like to get around a lot. You can't keep me contained. I'm here, there, and everywhere, and that's what I love. That's what I love about people. But yeah, I just want to give a massive shout out to you. It's really refreshing, this podcast. You've had a very diverse mix of collectors from different backgrounds, and yeah, another shout out to Third Down. Long live Third Down.
I appreciate that, mate. And we will definitely have you back on again as a guest and look forward to seeing you at the end of the month.
Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much for having me, and all the best, mate.